ಆಯ್ತಾ ಸರಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಯ್ತಾ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ನೀನಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ
Everybody kindly settle down. The panel session will start soon.
ಅಂತಲ್ಲಿ
Good morning, everybody. I am Kirtana, a third-year BA student. It's an honor to introduce our esteemed panelists for today's discussion on media ethics in the digital sphere, ethics and regulation in the 21st century. In an era where digital media shape narratives and influences society, this conversation is more relevant than ever.
ಆಯ್ತಾ
First and foremost, I would like to introduce the panel moderator, Professor B.P. Sanjay. Professor Sanjay is a distinguished senior professor of communication at the Manipal Institute of Communication, Mahe. He has also served as the director of Indian Institute of Mass Communication and as the founding vice chancellor of the Central University of Tamil Nadu. Dr. Sanjay earned his PhD from Simon Fraser University, Canada, and has been actively involved in national and international academic bodies that chalk out policies on media education and research. His numerous focus on journalism education, media
ಏನಾಯ್ತು
His numerous publications focus on journalism education, media systems, and communication policies. With over 4 decades of teaching and research experience, he has significantly contributed to the political economy of communication, technology transfer, and journalism education. His leadership has been pivotal in developing academic programs and institutions, and his participation in IANCR, ICA, and other global organizations highlights his dedication to advancing the field of communication. We are honored to have you amongst us, sir. I request you to kindly take your seat. Professor Usha Rani Narayana is a former professor and chairman of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Mysore. She was also ICSSR Senior Professor Fellow Coordinator of UGC UP projects under the Department of Studies in Journalism and Mass Communication of the University of Mysore. She is also the former Director of Educational Multimedia Research Center, University of Mysore. Professor Usha Rani holds dual degree in education and in journalism, as well as a PhD in journalism. As a media educationist, she won the prestigious American Fulbright Fellowship twice, which is a rare distinction in India. She has bagged many prestigious awards in addition to other honors, such as the Canadian Advanced Faculty Research Fellowship and the coveted International Fellowship to undertake research at United Nations and Switzerland. Throughout her career, she has made significant contributions to her field, leaving a lasting impact on those around her. Ma'am, I request you to kindly take your seat on the dais. Professor Meera K. Desai is a seasoned academic with over 30 years of experience in journalism and mass communication. Her subjects of teaching include research methodology, management of human service organizations, development communication, communication and media perspectives, communication research, media management, communication technology, gender and development, and scientific writing. She also has research topics like Indian television, research methodologies, gender and development, and sociology of technology. As an active publisher, she has contributed to scholarly work in multiple languages. Her various publications include 5 books, 10 book chapters, 9 research papers, 47 popular articles, 3 monograph contributions, 6 internet articles, 11 EV scripts, and numerous blogs. Currently, she is a professor and head of the Department of Extension and Communication at SNDT Women's University, Mumbai, and is involved in several academic networks and initiatives. A hearty welcome to you, ma'am. Professor Niranjana Vanalli is currently serving as the Vice Chancellor of Bengaluru North University. Hailing from a remote village Vanalli in Sirsi Taluk of Uttara Kannada district, Dr. Vanalli pursued his Masters in Journalism and PhD from the University of Mysore. Dr. Vanalli began his teaching career as SDM College Ujire near Dharmasthala. He served as the head of the Department of Journalism for 6 years. In the year 2018, he was appointed as the director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at Tajikistan. He has also served as the Registrar of Karnataka State Dr. Gangubai Hangal Music and Performing Arts University, Mysore, between 2016 and 2018. Professor Niranjana is a popular speaker and a prolific writer in Kannada. He has penned 36 books to his credit, and he is the recipient of the National Award for his short film Leila Gold in 2016. His first book, Suddhi Ashte Allah, won the State Sahitya Academy Award in 1993. A hearty welcome to you, sir. Professor Mohan J. Datta is a media expert, author, and academic. He is currently the Dean's Chair Professor at Massey University, New Zealand. He is also the Director of the Center for Culture-Centered Approach to Research and Evaluation. Professor Datta received his Bachelor of Technology in Agricultural and Food Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, MA in Mass Communication from North Dakota State University, and PhD in Mass Communication from the University of Minnesota. His contribution towards research and academia has earned him many awards, including the prestigious Charles H. Woolworth Research Award, the National Communication Association's Golden Anniversary Monograph Award, and the Bridge Award for Excellence in Connecting Crisis and Risk Communication Research. Sir, thank you for joining us online despite the time zone differences. Your commitment to being part of this session is truly appreciated. I sincerely thank you on behalf of the organizing committee. I now request the moderator to continue the discussion.
A very good morning to everyone, and greetings to fellow panelists here and Professor Mohan Datta from there. Since yesterday, we have been talking a lot about media and digital world. Some of the issues and concerns have been predominantly flagged in the sessions, and many speakers have already alluded to both institutional and individual dimensions, particularly pertaining to content in the media, which brings to the fore many of the ethical dimensions and dilemmas. Media, fortunately, has a sufficient critical baggage of intellectual thinking over centuries in the field of balancing freedom and responsibility and so on. And therefore, the institutional dimensions of checking professionalism and a balanced perspective to society have by default guided the functioning of mass media institutions in varying degrees. Not to say that there were aberrations in that system, but on balance, there was a sense of how and what content should be disseminated. Since digital spheres or spaces, as the organizers have defined it, is the focus, this brings to the fore at least 2 or 3 levels of content management, production, and distribution. One is, of course, the institutional dimension. The other one is the individual aspect. Then, of course, you have communities and groups. All of this put together, many scholars have commented about the promotion and perpetuation of what we call as echo chambers, etc. So, what then becomes the ethical framework? Many of the aspects of digital, let us say in the Indian context, come in the framework of the Information Technology Act and the amended frameworks thereof. And therefore, the system of governance, whether we like it or not, is ingrained in the macro framework of IT, in which either digital spaces or digital spheres are allowed to perform and or regulated. Because the governance system has come in, there's always a dialectic relationship between erstwhile notions of freedom and responsibility, and also political perceptions of what is the polity that determines the governance system. Yesterday, for example, in the polarizing framework that one of the sessions discussed, there were a series of references to what is the present ecosystem in which even truth or post-truth is defined and understood. So there's one, the governance system. Then, of course, there is the platform institutional setup, economic setup, and also the transnational nature of platform economy in which many of the digital spaces and spheres function. At the third level, we have the society at large, and this in this particular context, we are referring to the subcontinental framework of India as a context for our reference. And this is historically a very diverse and a plural context in which sharing and distribution of ideas have always been respected in whatever channels and media that we were aware of. However, the argument and framework in many circles is that digital spheres, digital spaces have promoted, perpetuated, and heightened a sense of polarization, new forms of affirmation of identity, and new forms of reinforcing certain aspects of living, certain aspects of culture onto the rest of the society. So the challenge is just not about governance. The challenge is also about responsibility. Earlier, the responsibility could be fixed on media houses, and we could flog them, either the professions or the industry that help the professionals to manage. But today, flogging an identified group is very difficult. It's very difficult because of the nature. Somebody mentioned that it's very difficult to fix responsibility, although IT Act does it, but it's very difficult to fix responsibility. Now, it is in this framework I am situating myself and the panel to pose a few questions, which in round one, maybe the panelists will try and answer. The disadvantage probably for the panelists might be they have already articulated some of their positions, and the book of proceedings has their views, which is published and released. However, let me pose a few questions in round one, which the panelists might take it up and interlace it with their own observations. One is the governance system compatible and in a position to handle the diverse and plural content generation of the news kind or of the entertainment kind? Two, is the larger societal framework in a position to invoke its traditional and other moral, ethical, and other values in being responsible in the spaces that are available to them? Is the onus on the community to invoke its inherited sense of ethical principles? I'm not here to say whether the Indian system of values is better than others, but I'm talking about a cumulative set of values that guide what we do. Three, what do you think of the platform's responsibility and ability to considerably moderate and check all aspects of some of the consequences of hate speech, misinformation, and fake news? So I'm posing this question at the governance level and at the institutional level, at the community level, and at the platform level, because all these are measurable and finite in number as of today. They're not so innumerable for us to say that how can we do it. There are ways and means by which it has been done. So let me call upon Meera Desai, then Professor Mohan Dutta, followed by Professor Vanali, and then Usha Rani, in that order, to give a round one response to this set of questions, and then we take it forward. Please feel free to bring in your own views. This is just a framework for the discussion, but please feel free. Thank you very much. Meera Desai.
Check. Yeah.
Yes, Subha.
Yeah. If the sound is kind of little,
Get my question.
yeah, slightly. You want to speak? Yeah. Sir.
No, my questions in round one was, what do you think of the governance systems ability to handle the ethical aspects in the present digital spheres and ecosystem? 2, what is the community and individual responsibility to invoke the set of societal values and ethics which has been transmitted and which is available, which restrains them from doing what they are doing in digital spaces and spheres? 3, what is the platform's responsibility and technical possibility of being able to moderate and check content of the kind we are talking about in the sphere of misinformation, hate speech, and other consequences? These are the 3 questions. One is the governance, one is the community, the third one is the platforms, which are facilitating content distribution of different kinds.
So, good morning. I'm going to do a little differently. One thing I want to ask you is, I'm taking a picture of all of you and I'm putting it on my social media. How many of you think it's not ethical? Do any of you think it is unethical? No. 1 person, 2 person, 3 people felt it's unethical, 4. I'm sure all of you have experienced that in public spaces you are being photographed and or people are on a private video call and you are part of their video call without your consent. And theoretically, it's unethical because I need to take your consent whether you want to be part of my photograph or not, or whether I can post your picture or not, in a kind of an ethical framework, normative ethical framework of individual ethics. But the reality is that digital brings in a kind of a differential framework. And obviously, we all have kind of played on, and platforms are very happy because we are creating so much of content for them. And it's fueling the entire economy of digital now, where we are a data and data is the oil, and therefore a society that is kind of digital. And obviously, we have been kind of speaking about it since yesterday, that how digital and physical kind of merges and how the kind of spheres have its own kind of dimensions. So taking that from there, I've already written about the new bill, information technology bill in 2024 that the government of India is introducing. And as you see, the ethics is a part of a title of the law, which is in itself kind of speaks of what state thinks about in terms of what we do online. And all of us are kind of now intermediaries, and sir has been asking about platforms. I personally debate how it is possible to kind of, no doubt Meta has gone off and they have kind of put the guardrails of fact-check down. So now whatever you are getting is you are getting at your own risk. The assumption is the audiences are active and audiences will figure out what they are consuming. The platforms have no responsibility. Government will try and do certain things. It will be looked at as a control, and it will create all its own problems in a kind of operational sense. So considering, and then audiences are not very, very intelligent. A large segment of audiences are not very, very intelligent. So there is a kind of a fear, and all of us are kind of aware of polarization, misinformation, propaganda, and everything that is happening around us. I continue what my argument is that I had yesterday, that nobody gets cheated multiple times. At some point, the person who is being cheated becomes wiser. So I kind of survive on that hope that the audiences will be intelligent. At some point, they'll kind of wake up to the reality that they are being duped, and they will kind of stop responding to that. Having said that, we can't kind of get away at a macro level from a responsibility that the platforms have to take, the state has to take, and content creators have to take. Obviously, as all of us who have been kind of teaching media and communication are aware about self-regulation, and it's kind of pretty nice and simplistic to be self-regulative about it. I can avoid not to take your picture and put it on my social media to say that I spoke to this audience. But I am tempted to kind of create my own brand value, and therefore I have to take that picture and to show off to the world that I exist. And then obviously your consent is not part of that existence of mine. So coming back to what sir's question had been. My understanding is, and whatever my kind of context is, that the governance is extremely challenging, and we are aware that in last 20 years there have been number of cases where people have been kind of in Bombay we had a case of entire toolkit challenges, and especially one particular case of a girl who wrote something on a Facebook and her uncle's clinic was kind of ransomed, and they paid a huge price for what they kind of went through. So there is a kind of implication of what we are doing in digital, and there is a physical implication of what it is happening. But having said that, the complexity that still remains in terms of how does one stop all this, and we are kind of left with more questions than answers as usual, being coming from a economics context of kind of digital economics that we are talking about, because the more the people are online and the more the posts are coming, it's going to be a kind of a more vibrant, and therefore there is a kind of a pressure that the platforms also create for people to kind of post more content and more material, and there is a kind of a cycle. I am not sure, sir. I have no clue. My understanding is that, and I continue what I said yesterday, is that in a times to come, I think the models will come kind of shape up for a digital spaces in terms of regulation, in terms of content responsibility, in terms of monetizing, because I think they are also still not very, very defined. And it happened to private television in our country. We have seen that happening with Z creating bolder content and fashion TV being blocked, and all sorts of other things that happen. We have seen that with FM radio. We have seen that with films also, OTT also now, like it's taking them 10 years to regulate actually. So, and this bill is little concerning, considering that any of us can go behind the bars just for kind of putting one post that we thought is kind of relevant and meaningful for ourselves, but not for somebody who decides to kind of frame you. So I would kind of feel that we might have to wait it out as the media teachers and wait for what happens in terms of ethics in digital space. And I feel people will kind of figure it out.
Can I call Professor Mohan Badatta to perhaps give his perspective and also to respond to some of the questions? Professor Mohan Datta, you're on.
Thank you so much. I'll take about 7 to 10 minutes, and I have some slides to share. I have just sent the request to share the slides. Can I do that?
Yes, you can share it.
It's not allowing me to say, sir. I'm unable to share the slide. It's saying slide sharing is not turned on. Do you want me to come back as we figure this out?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
The first thing I asked Professor Sanjay was, don't put me too many and tough questions. We were talking about the the media ethics in the 21st century in the digital sphere. I would like to start with a firm conviction that whatever may be the technology, the ethics should not change for human society and humankind. Whatever may be the country, what is good and what is bad cannot be accepted or compromised. That is my firm belief, that what is good and what is bad in society, what is ethical, what is unethical in the media cannot be compromised. So Professor Sanjay was asking from the point of view of governance first. I believe, see, when media, it may be the print medium, it may be television, it may be the social media we are talking, it has become a source of income, and it is, the media is for sowing money and reaping money. All the owners are worried about how much they are getting by this investment. I am afraid for the governments, for people who own the media, the ethical questions become secondary. First of all, their business, their money is important for them, and they go to whatever extent and they are not bothered. That is what is happening in the present day world. In my abstract, I have given you one example that recently happened. First of all, it came in the social media. Then it was printed in newspapers, Prajavani also, that Prakash Rai taking a holy bath in Kumbh Mela. The moment I saw this in social media, I was very false. Because I know him personally, he is not kind of person going to Kumbh Mela. That day he was in Kerala, and he was going around Kerala, and the social media picturized that he is taking a holy dip in Kumbh Mela. It's very clear. Where is the question of ethics? Who has to govern this? Who has to correct this? Who will take the responsibility? And all those people who see that in the YouTube or who see that in the print media, they believe that it must be true. And see, Prakash Rai, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋದೊಂದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಕುಂಭಮೇಳದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ನಾನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಜನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊತಾರೆ. It is, see, it's a false information and defaming the person also. So it is the question of governance. It is the question of content creation also. So that is what is happening in the present day world. That is why, see, the trend is nowadays, whatever that comes, people are not bothered, sir. It may be in the social media, it may be in print media. I say, Vice Chancellor, every day I get at least 10 persons saying, oh, press a lot. I laugh at it, saying, what will happen? As a result of this trend, it may be social media or print media or electronic media, they have lost what is mostly required for media ethics, the trust of the people. That is most dangerous for the present day media, I feel. Let us discuss it further.
Professor Mohan, are you ready with your presentation? Can we? All right. Professor Mohan, you're on.
Great, thank you so much. So I have just a few brief slides to share. Can you see my screen? So what I thought I will do is, in response to the prompts, really talk about the broader or macro level question of what does it mean to engage with questions of decolonizing media ethics. I think this is particularly important given the conversation around sort of what does it mean to build Indian or South Asian registers of ethics and media ethics. And at the same time, I think it is really critical to unpack what we mean by decolonization and de-Westernization, particularly in the context of the co-option of these concepts to serve authoritarian power and control. So what I thought is I will talk about hegemonic concepts of media ethics, including how these concepts are taken up by fascist movements. Then I would talk about the nature of communicative inequality in media spaces and really offer us some ways for thinking about this concept of voice infrastructures as the basis for thinking about media ethics from the margins, where communities who have historically been disenfranchised participate in building registers for how we think about ethics. I think this is particularly important when we look at the global digital infrastructures that work continually to create spaces of marginalization in the backdrop of the broader narrative of media proliferation and pluralism. So on one hand, we see an overarching narrative of pluralism, and on the other hand, what we see is systemic disenfranchisement and erasure of communities that are already at the margins. And I will draw upon my work with Adivasis in Eastern India, particularly with Santalis, and working to build media infrastructures and spaces of storytelling to offer this counter narrative. So first of all, in terms of how we think about media ethics within the broader project of neo-colonialism, it is important to think about the nature of digital infrastructures within global geopolitics that are designed to serve settler colonialism, that are designed to serve imperialism, and that are designed to serve racial capitalism. So in that sense, the architecture of platform structures are designed within free market interests, are designed within the broader project of neoliberal capitalism, where we see increasing consolidation of power and control in the hands of oligarchs. So when you're talking about regulation, really, what one has to be mindful of, it is on one hand, the Meta and the X that hold the discursive infrastructure in terms of articulating what regulation ought to look like. And on the other hand, you have populist authoritarian leaders that have arrived at power, leveraging these infrastructures, setting up the terms of the conversation. So the ongoing extractive agendas of digital capital are fundamental to upholding platform capitalism that uses likes, shares, comments, emotions in order to generate the profitable structure. Inherent in this then is the project of surveillance, the ongoing surveillance of people. So digital infrastructures working to surveil people, surveil communities. And in fact, we have seen this in India in terms of incarcerating people and communities at the margins that challenge the status quo. So this is intertwined with the broader project of violence. We see it in the context of the ongoing violence that we are witnessing in Palestine right now in terms of these digital infrastructures forming the broader space through which the communicative articulation for genocide is put forth and pushed. Now, within post-colonial context, then these digital infrastructures uphold caste. And, these questions of caste are really important, and the politics of caste. When we think about the ways in which caste shapes the design infrastructures of large tech corporations. I mean, if you think about the Cisco lawsuit in California, one of the things that's quite evident in the Cisco lawsuit is the extent to which caste pervades across global tech corporations. So I think it really raises critical questions about the digital, about the casteist nature of these digital platforms, which simultaneously erase Adivasi articulations, indigenous articulations, Dalit articulations. In terms of gatekeeping then, the gatekeeping of what regulations are going to be, what the policies are going to be, what the frameworks are going to be are designed by post-colonial elites, often far removed from communities at the margins. So hegemonic media structures and digital structures are reproduction of these media structures. Both reflect the underlying ideologies of imperialism and casteism. underlying ideologies of capitalism and perpetuate the overarching project of whiteness in terms of pushing forth individualism, cognitivism, linearity, and message centrism. Now, in this backdrop, then, decolonization or de-Westernization is often articulated as an alternative way of thinking through these media structures. But often these narratives of the decolonization are themselves tied to the project of expanding the free market, organizing of data to serve the logics of platform capitalism. So capital is kept intact through the processes. Even when data are discussed in notions of diversity, it's very much entrenched within those broader capitalist structures. Concepts of platform moderation, for instance, continue to serve agendas of power. So it is a state and powerful corporations that are deciding on the rules and the logics that are often disengaged from the voices of communities at the margins. What is particularly of concern to me is the ways in which the language of decolonization is then co-opted in this backdrop to serve fascist agendas, both in terms of using disinformation to spread hate, using platforms to spread hate, polarized communities, marginalized communities, but also in order to consolidate the power and control of populist authoritarian leaders. So, and I want to use this particular example as a media example that I've been working on. So if you look at, Palki Sharma and this articulation of the Indian media project being one of finding cultural nationalism and the story of Indian cultural nationalism, I argue that this kind of formulation of decolonization serves the profiteering agenda. So you see the ongoing usage of the narrative of personal branding and influencer culture. And at the same time, it serves the propaganda infrastructures of fascism, where the role of the media is no longer to offer balanced narratives, but actually to perform particular kinds of persuasion. So in that sense, media are critically articulated as infrastructures for carrying out communicative inversions, turning reality on their head to project particular narratives. You see this with proliferation of so-called historians like Sai Deepak, for instance, who use the language of decolonization precisely to serve a broader fascist project. So in this sense, then, this idea of decolonization and de-Westernization is reworked precisely to produce further marginalization in order to recraft narratives of hate and othering, and in order to, at the same time, silence dissenting voices. The question then becomes one of how do we build transformative spaces? So to me, decolonization is really about fundamentally dismantling these hegemonic structures. So in that sense, when thinking about concepts of media ethics, we have to think perhaps about how we organize communities at the margins to participate in processes of struggle, in processes of resistance, in order to build concepts of ethics that are grounded in community life, that are grounded in the logics of everyday community participation. So in order to do so, and I will wrap up with this concept, that I suggest that when really thinking about decolonizing media ethics, we have to think about how we build voice infrastructures, which are systems, platforms, norms, and processes through which communities can express their voices, share stories, and participate in decision-making, where communities articulate, including, going back to your prompt, sir, communities articulate ideas of what regulatory frameworks ought to look like, what content moderation frameworks ought to look like, decentering and pluralizing the power that is now consolidated in the hands of both capitalist and authoritarian populist leaders. In this sense, the project is one of transferring accountability from the state and the market to the hands of communities, where communities organize to build these registers for discussing how we create regulatory frameworks. And I wrap up with this idea then that these ideas of how we build these the ethics frameworks rooted in community, it's perhaps a good idea to turn to ideas of collectivization, where we foreground notions of sovereignty, the community capacity to tell its own story, for articulating collective rights in community contexts, for disrupting authoritarian erasures and the ways in which the authoritarian project works to silence communities, and decentering the logics of surveillance, both by building spaces where communities can participate in reading these technologies, but also in challenging them. So I want to wrap up by giving an example. Some of the work that we have been doing are with Muslims that experience the onslaught of disinformation and hate online. And one of the things that we see there when working with Muslims at the margins is that communities have incredibly powerful ideas of what ethics ought to look like from their lived experiences. And I think it's really vital that we think about how to foreground those spaces where communities can participate to articulate these ideas of ethics that are plural, that are grounded in lived experience and tied to community life. Thank you.
Good morning. Namaskara, and thank you for the opportunity. And it's a very relevant and significant topic. The topic is the media ethics in digital sphere. And the issues that we have been asked to examine in the first round is the governance. Doctor, will I go there? ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಎರಡು ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ. Okay, I'm audible. Yeah, that's very important because that is, and I established EMRC, and if I don't communicate through microphone, then it will be a very, I will cut a sorry figure. Okay, thank you for giving this topic. And the question here is the ethics and governance. And whenever we refer to ethics, we have to go for judicial interpretation. Most of the ethical violations have been examined in the courts of law in India. As a result, even the concept of social media has been examined by the court. The court says there is no statute that gives the meaning, actual meaning of social media. So we go by day-to-day meaning of social media. So there is flexibility even in defining social media, but the judiciary says that we base all our judgments, pronouncements on this understanding that that is presumed by the society. So it may change even in future. I take from Dr. Mohan Datta, where Dr. Mohan Datta left, that is accountability. That is one issue. And Dr. Meera Desai also referred to the laws. And that is the most important thing in this country is the governance is taken care of by a set of laws. But we had IT Act 2000, and that was tested in 2017 when we had the classic case of Shreya Singhal and Union of India, where she challenged the constitutionality of the section 66A. She said it is unconstitutional. And therefore, the court heard her, and that led to the repeal of, that is a historic case, repeal of section 66A. Friends, this was the beginning of examining the IT Act to fix the accountability. You know, you have the social media in every nook and corner and in every blood cell of your human body, and you don't want them to be accountable. So the only alternative you are left with is the judiciary. So the government strengthened, amended, and came out with the regulations 2021. And I think all of you know this. And three things have been considered by the courts of law in subsequent cases. What are those? That means the users have challenged the ethical violations on three things. One is right to equality, Article 14, and Article 19(1)(a), freedom of speech and expression, and Article 19, that is right to liberty. So these are the three important laws under which most of the 99% of the cases have been heard, violations have been heard by the courts of law. So this is where we recently we had the case with Ananda Vikatan. Ananda Vikatan is a Tamil magazine, and they blocked the content, the content of the website completely. Okay. And Vikatan did not realize, after 48 hours, they realized that content is blocked. And the issue was the cartoon that was published by Ananda Vikatan. What was the content of the cartoon? It was about our Prime Minister Modi and the President Trump. So they said it is derogatory and it threatens national security. So I don't want to pass the comment because it is sub judice, but the Madras Court, High Court, came to the rescue of Ananda Vikatan. They said, you cannot block the entire website as per the regulations. You can block the cartoon, but not the entire content of the website. So they were asked to remove the block, and that's it. So the issue is how much of freedom you have to publish the cartoon in this country, and that needs to be explained by the court of law now. So they are going to examine the regulations, the laws, and they have framed media ethics, digital media ethics bill. It is passed, approved by both the houses of parliament. And now they have framed the rules, and rules are also approved, and it has come into the force. Let me tell you that this regulation is, some of the sections are in favor of the users, because there are very good mechanisms at 3 tiers. They have constructed a 3-tier mechanism in first tier, second tier, third tier. So only in the third tier, the level 3, you come across the ministry officials taking care of it. That is being argued against, again, free speech. You are interfering, and there is too much of control given to the government as far as the mechanism is concerned. The third mechanism is concerned. But the first two, I have a friend in Mysore, Maithili Rao, who recently won Satyajit Ray Award. And she posted something in Facebook, and she was blocked. And she challenged it. So this act gives you, there is a provision where you can challenge it, and it was restored. There was no security involved. There was no sedition involved. There was no threat. There was no anarchy involved. So it was restored. So how many of us can become Maithili Raos, And there is one more lady, Sita Bhaskar, in our authors club. She's from US, settled in Mysore. And even she challenged it. She said, my, content is blocked. And so you have to have, there is a redressal system, accountability. Yeah, intermediaries are made accountable. What does the regulation say? Let me briefly tell you. Within 48 hours, you have to take out the objectionable material. Like the Prakash Rai, within 48 hours, if there is a complaint, they have to remove that content within 48 hours. Within 24 hours, you have to inform the user that this has been removed and this has been blocked or what. So but the data retention time is 180 days. That is six months. You think your content has been deleted, but they have to retain the content for 6 months for investigation purpose. So again, there is a violation of the privacy. So the question here is, how much of data protection is given to us? Because how much there is, as of now, there is no data protection law in India, but they have framed DP Act, and it is again approved. Now they have framed the rules, and that is in public domain. And those of you who are interested can give feedback and say these rules are okay or not okay. Okay, so this is there. As on today, there is no data protection law in India. So how are we going to get the privacy and security for our data? And this privacy issue came up because of another historic case. The case pertains to Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India. He was a former judge who challenged the privacy issue. He said privacy is one of the fundamental rights. And it was examined. Look, this was examined because everybody in the social media was saying big noise about privacy. How are we going to protect our privacy? 9 bench SC judges were, they gave the judgment. They said privacy is one of the fundamental rights. Okay, so your privacy, then the government took notice of it, sat up and framed the DPDP regulation. So till then, there was no private data protection law in the, because privacy is directly linked to data protection. There is one more catch in that. All intermediaries says that your content is encrypted, encryption, end-to-end encryption. It means you feel very protected, very secure. That is required. If you're operating it is very much required. But there is decryption rules that has been brought out by the government. So that means you can trace the originator of that Prakash Rai's photo, because this is anonymous, who he has put this. So they invade your privacy. The decryption rules allows the government to open your content and examine your content from end to end. In the process, even certain suspected individuals are also, their accounts also gets decrypted and your privacy is invaded. So the issue here is how much of freedom, how much of control should be given? Because all this time we were talking about the voice. And in the recent YouTuber case, the Ranveer case, the court has said that fundamental rights are not given. He told Abhinav Chandrachud, Justice Abhinav, is the son of Chandrachud, Justice Chandrachud, Abhinav Chandrachud. He told him, look, fundamental rights are not offered on platter. Fundamental rights come with restrictions, you know. So they called upon the government based on this YouTuber mischief, and they said, you regulate social media, you set the contours of social media news. What type of content can be shared in the YouTube? You regulate it and take traditional norms into consideration. How do you get these traditional norms? Where do you draw the Lakshman Rekha when it comes to accountability? You know, so these are, so what the judiciary, we know the pulse, we know the mind of the judiciary. Judiciary wants the government to regulate social media. So this is where in case after case, we have seen this governance part, the act, it is in favor of the user, but the user has claimed freedom of expression. But how far you can go, only the courts can say in this country. And I respect this now. And governance, I feel very, confused when you talk of AI. And can you govern AI is my, dilemma. You have certain challenges and dilemmas when it comes to governance, because that is the elephant in the room. And can you address the AI and the governance? That's a very, very, you have many challenges and dilemmas as far as AI is concerned, because I think most of the American university professors present here know that students use AI, and there is a big issue there, because this has been even challenged in the court of law. How do you detect that this has been, the assignments have been done using AI? Your PhD has been done with AI. Look, AI is a very good thing, but you should know how to use it. You should accountability. You are accountable for the content that you have generated from the AI. You know, it calls for your accountability. You refine it. You take information and don't cut and paste it. You refine it. You take what you want, but you refine it, and it can help. It is going to be a very good knowledge partner, and but there is an issue. This is academic problem, media problem, because every media in this country is using AI. Okay, your OTT platforms. Of course, it says sure like this. You like part two. So see, KGF. So it gives us a line of so it is controlling my mind. It is trying to control my mind, thoughts, ideas, and so the accountability. The person, it's not just the government's accountability, but how far as citizens we are accountable, how far we are educated. So how far AI literate. So I call for AI literacy, and AI governance. I have no answer for that. I rest my case here. That is it.
Well, round one, we got a wide range of responses from Meera, who talked about the existing and impending digital intermediaries framework, IT law, as well as certain instances which had questioned the ethical basis of some of the laws. Mohan had a very broad and interrogative framework on even the notion of ethics in the hegemonic order of things, which brings to a larger question as to whether the exercise of so-called codification of ethics, digital or otherwise, is in itself an exercise of perpetuating an hegemonic order on the sections of society that you very well articulated in terms of the tribe, the communities, and others. So maybe in round two, my question to you is the situation not at all comparable and compatible to think of ethics in such a highly iniquitous kind of a distribution of both media systems as well as platforms? I would like you to think about it. When I will come to Manoli, where he specifically, as a journalist background, mentioned about a case. How does he want to look upon or call upon media houses to adequately do a bit of a fact checking, and is that a ethical filter that he expects media to have? Finally, Usharani, my question is, yes, I mean, there's a lot of, and I missed that judicial perspective on ethics. And I would like to know whether the series of judicial pronouncements we have had from the Bombay case, the most recent case, and including the YouTuber case, has judiciary been able to try and provide? Because what the government normally do is to set all this judicial pronouncement and convert it into an easy amendment and incorporate the very thing that the judges use as laws that prevent people from doing the thing that we have seen it on the Digital Intermediate Act, what they have done and how they wish to. So my question to you would be, is there a summative problem and a dilemma and case by case judicial pronouncement, and is there a ethical framework that has come out as a result of your exposure to many cases that you referred? So let us start with Meera, if you want to have a summative view, then I move on to Professor Mohan for an articulation of the codification that I asked, then to Professor Vanoli, and then to Usha. You're on.
No, so sir, actually, I had this one personal experience that some 10 years back, a journalist came to me and I had a data of about 20 years of enrollments. And my concern was that the media should do a story about state enrollments because state institutions are facing enrollment crisis. And there is a need to kind of address this in a context of privatization of education. And the story got printed and the heading was SNDT closes courses. And I wrote a mail to the editor. The editor forwarded the mail to the journalist, and the journalist writes a mail to me saying my sub-editor changed the headline. And the whole story obviously worked against me and my management. So the intention of sharing data was not the intention of kind of helping the institution, but it worked like that. So, and we couldn't fix the accountability because ultimately, as we all know, what happens not digitally is what happens digitally, or legacy media versus digital media. But what is happening of late, in my understanding in India, especially in a day-to-day basis, is collision of this social, political, and economic spheres, because when an influencer is kind of caught and put on kind of a legal notice and not allowed to travel, and then being kind of, and after being given an award for content creation by the kind of the head of the country, that's where we see this chaos happening in 21st century digital sphere, especially in India, where it will be extremely difficult to segregate judiciary from to social to economic. So I think we need kind of newer frameworks is my kind of understanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for articulating that question, particularly about this idea of who participates in the decision-making around what ethics is and what are the frameworks around ethics. And I want to give an example from my own ongoing field work that I was talking about with Muslims in India. So this is based upon in-depth interviews and an annual survey that we do, a panel survey with 1,000 Muslims. And what we see is about 65 to 70% of the sample says that they're exposed to Islamophobic hate online that goes all the way from dehumanizing Muslims to calling for rape and murder of Muslims. Now, with that kind of exposure, the thing that seems quite striking from that work is how little actually communities have access to regulatory frameworks, and how little access they have to spaces where they can articulate their voices to actually have any say in whether it is content moderation or whether it is in the formulation of policy. So you're absolutely right in many ways that when you have fundamentally unequal communicative spaces, the formulation of ethics is going to serve the power structures. And in this context, we think of the state and we leave the state uninterrogated. What when the state is a fascist or proto-fascist state, invested in the perpetuation of disinformation and hate in order to consolidate its power? Let's theorize the state as a political entity, is not a neutral entity that is there to serve us. And within that context, I think it becomes all the more interesting in terms of what is the work necessary of communication in organizing communities to actually have that kind of grassroots power to have a say in the kinds of policies and regulatory frameworks that are built around ethics. So I suppose what I'm calling for in many ways is the kind of grassroots movement building work that I see is necessary in order to both hold the state into account, but also in order to transform the nature of democracy itself. Thank you.
Sir, totally, I understand. Your question is, who will build the cat? Regarding, it may be judiciary, it may be the stakeholders of social media or any other media, or it may be the government or governors. Who will build the cat? If media ethics are violated, if unnecessarily some people are defamed, unethical practices are there in the media. I will give you one example. Recently I faced. Somebody calls me over phone. I trust that man. He asks a question about the university. I answer him. Without my knowledge, he has recorded it. And next day, he puts it on the social media. Tell me, sir, whether it is ethical. Can he record without my permission, without my knowledge? And when I say something with trust, can he publicize it, make it viral? This kind of problems, see, not only the people in power, the people in the social media or in the public are facing. I think even the common people have to face this. So now the question is, just by the courts, intervention of the courts or intervention of the police, intervention of the government, these things cannot be stopped or cannot be controlled. And who will build the cat? My firm belief is, see, I know there is a YouTube channel in Kannada. Every day it says, this actor is dead. This politician is dead. Every day. Total false. Now nobody believes it. So it is the trust of the people, the users, that over that point of time, if you are always telling some false, giving some bad ideas, people will not respect. So more than the rule, I think the public maturity should win.
Dr. Sanjay, the question here is, yesterday we had a lot of discussion about media trust. Do we trust media? So there is a decline in media trust. So also people have become cynical about media. So the legacy media. So we were arguing that there was no voice given to the common man. Now they have a big voice. We applied even the voice index, and we found that it failed. The legacy media failed in voice index, but the social media had the two things, criteria, inclusion and diversity. They scored it. But today, I look at it and I studied the code of ethics framework that has been approved by the government. they have trivialized the code of ethics. You know why? Because they have just copied the PCI, Press Council of India Code of Ethics. They have just asked you blindly to follow Press Council of India. And so what kind of case study can you make? Because these media, the legacy media, have failed. We are not with the people have lost trust. Violating left, right, and center. So those code of ethics, which have no meaning in concerning legacy media, have been applied blindly, to the digital media. And so this is where when you don't understand the media, and you asked me to give a case study, but we are in the AI, we are facing AI, and we want to create an AI society. So we have seen the agriculture society, as some experts have told us, in development communication, industrial society, information society, and knowledge society. Now it is human society. So what is the priority of human society is pro-social needs. So AI has done very well. As far as, even without code of ethics, it has done very well in agriculture, education, and health. They have done marvelously well. So this is where, when it comes to public, can you frame any case study? Can you frame code of ethics in favor of public? No, because PCI was a paper tiger. It can only censure media, and it never happened in India, except 1 or 2 cases. And they have asked us to follow the broadcasting rules, which is outdated, So this is it's a big challenge. It's a failure. As far as code of ethics, my take on this is they have trivialized code of ethics of digital sphere.
Thank you. We now have the floor open for questions. We have a lot of time, and very interesting points and perspectives have come around. So please feel free to ask the question and identify the panelists whom you wish to respond. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful session. My name is Shravan. I'm from Hyderabad. So we are discussing about the ethics and the role of stakeholders. Are we in a cat and mouse and cat race, or cat and mouse race? How we are progressing into the future always. In 1980s, we had computers and we moved ahead. And we tried to move to 2000s, and we had search engines. As social sciences scholars, we try to resolve the issues of then ethical standards. For example, like plagiarism, all these concepts. Now, when the corporatization of technology is happening, where AI is being taken over by the corporates a lot, and we are moving into the future again, they are coming up with machine learning. We are in a mode of resolving what is happening with AI, bringing out the ethical standards. Now, is there any question that we are asking these corporate stakeholders to be ethical first and introduce a concept where in terms and conditions, they mention we take cookies from you and we track your information. But at the same time, are we telling that these corporates should first have the ethical standards when they introduce technology into the society and make us social sciences or the humans to realize what is going to come in the future and how we have to act? That's the only question. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's for all the panel members. Anybody can discuss. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Maybe 2 or 3 questions can be taken by the panel. Yeah.
Sir, I am Rudrappa. Good afternoon, everybody. So what happened? So there is no combination between AI development and government law enactment. This is the main cause of development of unethical developments in AI and communication also, sir. Because AI peoples are very advanced, but government run or government administrative is not fast as the AI people, sir. If they are rectified, then so naturally it can be curbed. And under the guidance of Indian constitutions, then only, so we can minimize these all problems. I think this is my opinions. Thank you very much for
some years ago, we brought out a book in honor of Professor Usha on media ethics. At that time, no writer could define what is ethics. It becomes a very subjective term. So we are talking in terms of ethics and AI. Have we moved on? That's the... But we discussed a lot about ethics. Even ethics, how do you define, sir?
Hello, sir. I'm Rituparna. I'm a PhD scholar in Mahindra University. I have a question to Professor Datta. These days, in terms of content creation, going viral is becoming very important. And you can be viral if you are following the trend. Now, who is forming this algorithm to be the trend setter? Because I'm telling one thing, in Maori Haka, in New Zealand, that lady, Hannah, got the platform to perform that Maori Haka, right? But the similar thing has been performed in Meghalaya as a Moatsu festival when they're celebrating the warfare. But either they are not aware how to utilize that alternative media, or that trend is, forbidding them to use that, because everyone is running behind money making. Even the communal or marginal classes, if they are forming the contents, that is also following the trend. Do you think the cultural imperialism is affecting the content creation more rather than building the cultural hybridization?
Right. Thank you. Now, can I request Professor Mohan to respond to the...
Thank you so much for that question, and I will, tie that in with the first question as well. So, first of all, to give you a context of the haka in the New Zealand Parliament, that went viral. The haka was not really performed for digital media. What's happening in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is that there is, like elsewhere in the world, there is a rise of the far right, and that has been mainstreamed into politics here, that is systematically attacking indigenous rights in the form of the Treaty Principles Bill, which is a bill that targets Te Tiriti, which is the foundational document of New Zealand that gives indigenous people their rights to land, water, resources, and sovereignty. So it is in that context that she performs the haka in the parliament, and that goes viral. So the question that you raise about virality and logics of virality, I think you're absolutely spot on that these logics themselves are capitalist logics in terms of what goes viral and then how that feeds into the profiteering logics of capital. So even when you are resisting, like you appropriately point out, the modes of resistance are incorporated into modes of profiteering of capital, because those are more eyeballs, more audience, more market segments for these platform corporations. And in this case, for Twitter or X, it is really Elon Musk in that sense, isn't it? So the question that I have been proposing in response to that, when talking about this idea of communities driving these processes, communities at the margins organizing, then is fundamentally to rewire and rework the ideas of data and data justice, and to create norms that are anchored in community life. So I will give you one example. For Maori, for instance, here in New Zealand, data sovereignty is a critical concept that is protected by the Tetiriti, and data sovereignty means that the indigenous communities own and have the right to own the data that is taken out of indigenous communities. Now that raises powerful questions in terms of, can really Meta or X own the data from indigenous communities, and what are the kinds of ethical frameworks to build around that in order to actually circumscribe the scope of functioning of these corporations, right? So that's sort of one question. To build it forward, then the next question is, can we really think about building just platforms? Can we think of how communities can participate in building just data infrastructures that are based upon ideas of sociality, ideas of community ownership, ideas of cooperativism? So these are powerful questions, and I think there are some excellent examples. For instance, out of Brazil, we have the Brazilian open science movement in terms of creating alternative cooperative platforms for journals and journal publishing, including communication journals that are actually owned by academic communities rather than big publishing houses. I've written about this in a paper called Decolonizing Open Science. So these models actually push us toward thinking not only how do we challenge and regulate these large data corporations, but this other question, which is how do we build just data infrastructures that are rooted in logics beyond profiteering and market logics? Thank you.
Corporation responsibility. Do they have some, you want to follow up with that question or the same question on corporate? The question that he raised was, do corporations or platforms or whatever is the system, they themselves have some ethical norms, and who is to enforce? That was the question. Would anybody like to respond to that? Yeah.
So if we kind of go back to CSR, which we came to India in 2013, and all those who are aware, the first round, second round of CSR was through NGOs. And then all CSR foundations have been set up, and now corporates put their own money into their own money. So corporate governance is a kind of a challenge as far as India is concerned, in my understanding, because we have a long history of Bhopal gas and all sorts of other things. But the corporatization of technology of media is something that we are witnessing now. Adanis and Ambanis are kind of taking over media infrastructures. And in that same context, I wanted to ask Professor Datta that because the grassroots movements are not kind of an exotic idea. They will stem out of political, social, economic structures of a given society. And considering the way corporates are taking over all those microstructures, because I'm sure we all are aware of what we call commodification of culture in terms of you have that Kachi Dhani in Rajasthan and Vishala in Gujarat, and so far as it is limited to food, but I'm sure it will expand into other spaces, because in the morning it was raised by Madam Melkote about 50% of unstructured data which is still to be captured, and that is that day-to-day data that companies are not able to capture, and I suppose they'll take long time to capture it, is my understanding. But it's happening. What you are raising is happening actually clearly, and I don't think we have a kind of accountable structures to kind of counter that, because especially in India, where the third director or a neutral director also is a somebody or somebody. So I am not sure about the.
Quickly respond to Meera before we. Usha, Vanali, would you have to? Mohan, would you like to respond quickly to?
Just very quickly. Absolutely. I very much agree with you that, this idea of community and community mobilization is not as if communities are exotic spaces, but actually the work is political, I think, and that work of that. And that's why, my last slide was radically organizing our democracies. At the end of the day, I don't think, and Vinod, I see a glimpse of him sitting there, and he and I have conversed about this. I don't think the solution is in some platform being the panacea for us. I think the solution is in our everyday organizing, in community, in grassroots democracy, and taking that back, Thank you.
Yeah, regarding corporatization, recently we had Elon Musk, and he himself misled the American society and all the American media before the budget, He prevented the president elect not to sign from signing the bills, So corporates have only one interest, They operate on the revenue model. And the other thing is they want audience engagement. And that is, they want to maximize audience engagement. And that is the reason they customize the content, It is customizing the content. And wherein they use the algorithms and echo chambers, you are a Bhakt or a non-Bhakt. And it will, but Bhakt doesn't want to become non-Bhakt. You should become non-Bhakt, so that your critical thinking, creative abilities, all this will help. So corporatization definitely is not going to solve the issue of the community. The community involvement is, I don't see the community involvement. Who is getting involved? It is the political party. It is the political marketeers and political strategists who are handling your media and customizing the content. So that is it. And you are earning the revenue.
In between, I think Asha made a passing comment about what do we understand as ethics. Somebody wants to give a quick answer to that? Maybe. We had a question of ethics, because somewhere ethics, AI and all came into our discussion. She had that question. If you want to take it, you can, but otherwise we move on. One would you like to respond to quickly? Yeah.
I think my friend was asking about corporate houses and ethics, right? My answer would be, see, when it is for the corporate houses to sow the money and reap the money, where do you find ethics? That is very difficult. And we talk about this CSR. Tell me, where was this CSR before government made it compulsory? It all depends. I always believe people make the difference. People may be in corporate houses, maybe in the Prime Minister's office, maybe in the public. If a leader, a person wants to make the difference, he can make the difference. If he is not, his aim is to make profit, he will make profit. If he wants to act ethically, he will act. Otherwise, no. So ethics, what is in your conscience? Act every time according to your conscience. No other definition of ethics is required.
My question to Usha Rani ji, as you rightly said that all the press council and everything is redundant now. So what is the solution? Do we need a digital media council or some other regulation for this digital space?
He raised the issue of ethical norms. The intermediaries already have ethical norms, internal, in-house. But when you are serving a big community, you need to come out, and you may come out, you may not come out. The others may not come out. So the government has framed the regulations, and we need the regulations. We need the regulations because there will be violation, because for the reasons I said earlier, because it is customized. The content is customized. Your corporate boss is not interested. I tell you, recently I was watching BBC News, and it carried a title, Verified News. So I sent a mail to them. What do you mean by verified news? Because they keep on using that. They said It's a breaking news, verified by multiple sources. So it is a filtered information, filtered news. So how ethical it is. And they are talking about Israel, a strike, Hamas, okay? And we have been seeing millions of pictures, visuals of that. And you remember Iraq war where Bernard Shaw showed the Scud, live war coverage and the Scud. Look at this, Scud fell on this. So that kind of, thing is happening in the media. So even the BBC verified title, that means even they don't, you know why? Even UN is not allowed to enter the Hamas. Hamas, you have to accept only the press releases, video, and that is given by them. Have they visited the hostages? No, not yet. Have they seen it? No. So this is where the ethics and the come into the picture. And we need to follow, because ethics is in public interest. In public interest, you have to tell the truth. You are a storyteller. You are in media. You are a storyteller, and you have to tell the truth. Okay, you have to give us the facts. That is it. That is the ethics in public interest. But if you have, if you don't have public opinion, today we have populist opinion, mass opinion. Aram say we can form mass opinion, populist opinion. In Andhra Pradesh, a dentist was raped and killed, and the police said why he was trying to escape, and so they did the justice. Do you know what the public? We conducted a survey. The public supported the move of the police. They said this should happen to him because he's a rapist. What kind of so the populist opinion? They kill the man, encounters, So the credibility part of the ethical part of it is very, very important. You have to tell us the truth. That is why we are here. The public is for. So what is the role of media in the society? You have the storytellers. You tell us the story either of Trump or of Mr. Modi, but you tell us the truth. Where is the transparency? In the act, even transparency is questioned, and your PSI is trivialization of our ethics.
Yeah, because Madam referred to this breaking news, I want to question you people. We always receive now fake news. Being a student of journalism, being a student of news, I know news cannot be fake. It may be fake information and not fake news. Am I right, sir? Because news has to be truth, news has to be objective, news has to be timely. How can you accept fake news? So let us not refer it as fake news. It is fake information.
Thank you, Vanuli. Difficult to summarize or moderate this range of societal issues that all of you have brought. I wouldn't even try to be ambitious to wrap it up. Yeah, you want.
It was a big challenge to answer Sanjay. When Sanjay is the moderator, we are like students in the classroom. We were like students in the classroom. I don't know how much marks he will give us. Okay, thank you, Sanjay.
Quick, madam.
I am from Criminology and Forensic Science Department. Myself, Sunita. I have a question for ma'am and sir. And who will take the responsibility of unethical information or media and privacy of the people? Is that AI or governance or judiciary? Who will take the responsibility? Unethical and fake news, fake information.
I think in passing, the panelists have discussed the judicial dimension, the belling the cat, the source. I think the answer lies in a sum total of the views that have been expressed. As I was trying to tell that it's very difficult to submit it, but the point here is that we seem to understand from the panel that ethics and ethical dimension, laws and regulation is an ongoing discourse and there cannot be a finality. Although the the framework that we wanted to have was the codification that has been attempted. We also had a view from Professor Mohan and supported by the other panelists that the whole concept of who owns the media and what media agenda is, and who owns the social media and how social media is also distributing information. He had questions about the extractive economies, and he knows, and the audience also knows, that 70 to 80% of Indian media is owned by extractive industry owners and monopolies. So although the landscape is viable, the extractive economy resides in those areas in terms of oil and metals. And we don't want to take names lest we also be pulled up for defamation for the rest of our life. But that is a reality, and that determines whose voices through what medium comes to the fore. Even forget about virality. Virality is a kind of a commercial entity that circulates because it is popular. Anyway, that's the second dimension. The third dimension, of course, was the judicial aspect, and the last dimension was, of course, who will bell the cat. So based on this sum total of the corporates, the ordinary people, the media, and the judiciary, we will see whether we can construct what media ethics is over the excellent lunch we have containing Bisibel Bhat and chips. Thank you very much for this morning. Mohan, can you stay back? I believe the organizers want to have a group photo. Please stay back 1 second.
So that brings us to the conclusion of this insightful discussion. A heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists for their valuable perspectives and thought-provoking conversation. I now invite the convener to present a memento of our appreciation and gratitude to our speakers.
Thank you once again, Mohan. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mohan, sir, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.